The Russian Defense Ministry says it has warned it will intensify attacks around Kyiv after accusing Ukraine of targeting Russian border towns. Moscow also claims its sea-based cruise missiles have hit a factory outside Kyiv which produces anti-ship missiles, including the type which, according to Ukraine, hit Russia's flagship vessel, the Moskva. Russia confirmed that the 12,000-ton cruiser from its Black Sea fleet had sunk, but it says it went down in rough seas as it was being towed into port after a fire caused its ammunition to explode. Here's Tim Allman.
The scourge of the Black Sea, now buried at the bottom of it. But how the Moskva got there is still disputed. Ukraine says it hit the ship with cruise missiles launched from the coast. Russia would only admit there had been an explosion on board and it then sank in bad weather. If the Ukrainians were responsible, it would be the biggest warship to be sunk by enemy action since the Second World War.
This is a tremendous victory for Ukraine, even if they didn't directly contribute to the sinking. And it's an enormous defeat for Russia because it indicates that the Russian armed forces simply aren't up to snuff in terms of modern military capabilities.
Perhaps not, but it does beg the question, how will Russia react? These were air raid sirens heard overnight in the western city of Lviv for the first time in several days. And there were reports of powerful explosions in the capital, Kyiv. In his latest video message, President Zelensky made reference to the fate of the Moskva. He praised the Ukrainian people, those who stopped the advance of endless columns of Russian equipment, those who proved that Russian planes were defenceless, and those who proved that Russian ships can only go to the bottom of the sea. But in the east of the country, invading troops continue their operations. The Ukrainian government fears their main goal now is to destroy the Donbass region. Russia may have sustained a heavy defeat, but it is still very much in this war. Tim Allman, BBC News.
Well, our correspondent in Moscow, Jenny Hill, has been telling me what the Russians are saying about that ship sinking.
The statement from the authorities says that the ship sank while it was being towed back to port in stormy seas. They say that it had suffered significant damage, in particular to its hull, following a fire and explosion of ammunition on board. Interestingly, this morning, state television hasn't really dwelt on the topic beyond citing that particular statement from the authorities. The statement from the authorities actually came too late to make it into the paper editions of the morning newspapers, but their online editions are starting now to include a little bit more in the way of commentary, and some of them are talking about what could have caused this fire, very much sticking to the authorities' script and noting that perhaps this ship, some 40 years old of course, had rather outdated and inefficient fire fighting systems on board. So very much sticking to the Kremlin script. Certainly no official response to the suggestion from Ukraine that its missiles were responsible for sinking the ship.
And speaking about scripts, obviously very different scripts throughout this war from the Ukrainian side and the Russian side, from Kyiv and from Moscow. What is the latest, though, that the Russian Defense Ministry is saying about the war in general?
We've actually had another update from them this morning. They say that Moscow plans to increase the frequency and the scale of strikes on facilities in Kyiv in retaliation for what it says are Ukrainian attacks on Russian territory. This has been building for the last couple of days. It follows a similar threat a couple of nights ago. It's difficult to know whether the actual number of reported attacks from Ukraine into the regions in Russia which border the country have increased in recent days, or whether the Russian authorities, and I suspect this is probably the case, are now talking about them with more frequency. Many of these attacks, as we put it, are unverified. It's very difficult to get independent information about what's happening there. But the Russian authorities have started talking a lot about Ukrainian strikes on Russian soil. And yesterday, officials in one region said that low-flying Ukrainian military helicopters had conducted airstrikes on a residential area, leaving some 7 civilians injured and some residential buildings damaged. So Russia is now saying, in response to this, it will step up strikes on Kyiv. We'll have to see how that situation develops, but certainly it does seem to be an escalating one.